On today's episode, I want us to have a bold and honest conversation. I want to talk to the parents who look like me. And I need to talk to you about our young people because they are genuinely confronting the realities of meth use. There is an impact that's going on right now, and there is a stigma that we are not dealing with as far as addiction that our children are dealing with. We have got to get back on the path towards healing in our communities. On today's episode, we're going to talk about smoke and silence, the hidden crisis that's right in our own homes. This intimate episode breaks down the silence around a topic that sometimes may feel a little too painful to even mention. But with tenderness and truth, we're going to hear examples of how to live through this, how to talk about it, how to pray about it, and how to navigate the heartbreak that some parents are dealing with in silence. But one thing about our community, we are resilient, and we do have hope that healing is truly possible for anything that our children may be facing. Y'all, this episode is not just about meth. It's about love that's being stretched to its limits. There's generational trauma, and we are going to find the courage to rewrite our stories. Whether this is your experience, whether you are in a space where you work with people in the community, if you have a family member, a friend, a foe, anyone that you know in our community that is currently dealing with this or are showing signs that their children may be dealing with this, I want you to share this episode with them in love and help them to walk this road in compassion and find clarity and connection for that healing. There was something I found that in our community, we are taught to be strong and not broken. But there is a silence around addiction that breaks more than it protects us. This underscores how this stigma around not talking about things and being strong keeps a lot of families from seeking help, especially in our Black communities. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am your God." Family, this assures us that God's presence holds us steady even in what feels like a chaotic situation in our homes. Psalms 147:3 says, "He heals the broken in heart, and he binds up their wounds." This verse will speak directly to the emotional and spiritual pain that addiction brings to the family. One can often say a parent's love doesn't disappear because of addiction. It expands itself in directions that they may have never, ever imagined. They have often had to find their way to be a listener, to be a counselor. They cry, they beat themselves up. They wonder what could they have done differently. They wondered what friendships they should have stopped. They just specifically wonder, could they have paid attention to something to catch the signs? And often you genuinely don't. Galatians 6:2 says, "Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." This, I want the family to be encouraged. You must get support community support, professional support to be able to walk into that collective healing. I read a quote that says, meth doesn't just change the user, it alters trust, it alters peace, and it breaks up every corner of the home. And so empathy is often a ripple effect that comes and goes as the person deals with this particular addiction. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9 says, and this is the King James Version, it says, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, yet not in despair. This particular scripture should captivate you and let you know that the family can be resilient even if you're facing overwhelming odds. There is healing that is available. We may not be able to control the choices that our young people make, but we can control the healing that we seek. Parents, there are agencies, I keep saying that you can seek out to prioritize your own wellness while your children are trying to figure out how to navigate back into their safe spaces. There is no blame. You did not cause this, mom and dad. So you can't cure it. But you can choose not to carry the shame of your child's addiction. You can adopt some positive ways to live through this by going through and speaking to other people who have been through this. Let them offer you some wisdom. Prayer does changes things, but so does connecting to a community that can help you navigate this space with wisdom. It is so powerful in our communities that we not I know what I'm looking for. That we not feel so strong that we feel we'll be judged if we seek help from the culture. Because y'all, sometimes we can be a little bit too hard on each other, especially in spaces where we may feel perhaps the parents are doing or not doing the things that we think they should be doing. Because you really can't understand the space unless you've been there. Oftentimes when I bring conversations to you guys on the podcast, it is because these are either conversations I've had, conversations that have been shared with me through social media platforms, conversations that people want to talk about, but they have not been able to find a safe space to do so. And oftentimes with a lot of podcasts, people will listen to us as complete strangers, helping them to navigate a space. In some cases, instead of going to a family member that's right there in the same home with them. Jeremiah 29:11 says, for your child, for I know the thoughts that I think towards them, says the Lord. This is a message of hope and divine purpose, even when the path seems uncertain. So let's talk about some discussion points, mom and dad, grandparents, those who are taking care of foster kids, those who may be dealing with teens that are in and out of the juvenile system because of meth addictions. Why? The question was asked, why is meth use so often hidden in our communities, especially specifically in Black communities, Black families? And what have we considered the emotional cost of that silence? And what I learned is that so many families feel isolated, believing that they must be the only ones that's dealing with this particular issue. You know, we used to say, see something, say something. But a lot of times, if we say something and we think we're going to be embarrassed or judged, then we won't say anything. But a lot of parents, I want you to know through this particular episode, you are not alone. Speaking up is the first courageous step towards connection and healing. We got to unpack the stigma. There are some things out there that typically say that there are racial stereotypes. There are addiction, stigma, intersections that seem to make it seem like our communities are the only ones that's dealing with certain things. Addiction isn't a moral failure, parents. It is a health issue. The weight of stereotypes makes it harder, but our stories deserve to be told. Your story deserves to be told without shame. Listen, it could have been the other way. One of the reasons we should not judge these families who talk about this is because I remember how the old folks used to say, baby, let me tell you something. If it were not for God's grace and mercy, where would I be? And so you got to understand that when you are in a situation that you meet individuals that are dealing with this shame, you've got to remember that the weight of stereotypes makes it harder for them to come and talk to someone about the situation. Now, from the youth perspective, teens and young adults wish that adults could simply just understand what the experience and the pressure feels like to them. They don't necessarily want to hear that this should be something you should handle, or I didn't raise you this way. Why did you get exposed to these things? They feel like you're not giving them the opportunity to hear their own words. There's this old saying that says 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And so our young people are carrying burdens, guys, that we can't always physically see for whatever reason. And so we want to listen without judgment. And this opens up the door that they've been waiting for us to invite them into. Parents, there is a role that you have to play. You have to figure out how to navigate your fear in this situation. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have children and to find out that my children or my nieces or my nephews or my grandchildren, my godchildren, my cousins, my siblings, I can't even imagine what it would feel like to be in this particular space. I mean, disappointment, unconditional. I think every single thing pops in your mind when you find out that you're having to support children through addictions. Loving a child can sometimes feel like you don't have any clue what to do. But when you're trying to love a child through addiction, that can be heartbreaking. But one thing about it, your love can also be their lifeline. Parents, you do not have to have all the answers. You just have to stay present. Even if your presence is just prayer. There is nothing wrong with community support, but you have to navigate it without feeling like your child is being shamed. There are churches, schools, neighborhoods, community centers, counselors. There are so many individuals who are waiting to help you and that are not looking to deepen the shame that you may feel. Communities can be a powerful place of refuge, but only if you find one that leads with love. You can find a place that'll help you replace those whispers with outreach and judgment with love, through the judgment and grace. But you got to get started as best as you know how. I've often read that there are even generational cycles that are in bloodlines that even brought this situation back up. There could be trauma, economic stress, a lack of access to care. There could be cycles, untreated cycles of addiction. Oh, that's just my family member. Everybody in the family know what they do, but nobody ever took the time to deal with it because everybody thought it was being handled. These patterns didn't start with us, but they can end with your child. Acknowledging family history, even the negative pieces of it, gives us the power to shift it and to have a healthier family and ancestral bloodline. Seek hope and healing stories. There are voices that have been there, that have done that, they have recovered, they're living their best lives. I saw some quotes where people were saying they still take it one day at a time. But more importantly, they did not give up. And what they have now is strength to give to your children. Y'all listen, recovery is real, even when it's hard. But take the time to hear from those who've made it through, because that can be the spark that your child needs to get on the path to their new beginning. So, policy and prevention. There are healthcare systems, schools, local governments that can better support our families. Let's start by researching things that are in our community. Support should not depend on luck. And in today's culture, good luck with that. We need to implement, research, find community things again that see our families as individuals. They can meet us. We can meet each other where we are. And we can invest in the lasting change that we need to see in our own communities. Meth use is real. And there are so many things that trigger our children in silence, whether it be peer pressure, whether it be, let me just try this one time. Oftentimes it's done so secretive that parents tend to sometimes identify it as something else until it gets out of hand. Listen, let me kill this narrative. Meth use is not just in houses that are impoverished. It's not just in houses where the children are out of hand and it's an expectation that these particular communities will have more of that usage. That's not what it is, guys. This is in every single family unit there is. Single, married, divorced, adoptive, foster care. It's all over. Go ask some individuals in the prison system. There are so many people, juvenile detention centers, federal, state level, who thought they could handle it. And just as many of those stories will share with you, not only did they not necessarily open up, but when they did open up, they felt like they were not treated the way that they needed to be treated, which is oftentimes some type of trauma that triggers some of the individuals to stay on the meth in the first place. A lot of the kids start out with different forms, and meth just takes them to a whole nother level. But there's a purity in our family that we have got. There are great days, there are good days, and then there are not so good days. But we have got to find a space to sit down and start talking to our children and listening to our children and stop teeter-tottering. I heard this great example of something today. One of my girlfriends shared this video with me, parents, and the couple were talking about themselves as husband and wife and how they talk to each other. But I think this is a great starting space for you to be able to have this conversation with your kids, especially if you are starting to see some things, money missing, clothes looking a little different, their grooming habits looking different. So this gentleman shared that he and his wife, they sit down, and what they noticed was they tend to stay away from each other when it's time to have important conversations. And so one was blaming the other one. One was saying, well, I stay away because you don't listen to me, vice versa. You get the gist of it. And so parents, what you can do is one thing that they actually adopted. They take about 45 minutes a week, not a day, just in a week. And you get 1 minute to tell your child, and vice versa, because you got to be willing to listen to your child. 1 minute to talk about the situation, 2 minutes to come up with a solution, and then the rest of the evening is spent processing what was said. And then the next week, that's when you come back and you talk about what was discussed the week before. So if you don't have a plan in place to listen to each other, then it's going to be so hard if you're just talking at each other. That is one of the things that our community is dying over. We all want to have an opinion, but none of us really want to listen unless we're giving you our opinion and then we're listening only to respond. Instead of listening, hearing what's said and say, okay, give me a minute, I need to process this. Give me a couple days and I'll come back. Because genuinely, you want to make sure that you heard what the person said. A lot of times for me, I'm a reactor. And so I need a day or two to go in prayer so I can calm down my feistiness, especially if it's something that I feel like I'm right about. And so if you're dealing with a child who has a dependency and an addiction, those addictions tend to make them feel like the whole entire world is against them and they're in this alone and you're not going to understand anything they're saying. And so they're automatically ready to explode as soon as the conversation opens up. And so remember, that's why it's important. Find some addiction specialist places. This is so easy in our society. There are so many counselors, so many agencies that are out there in our communities. All you have to do is just go online. Nowadays with AI, you can find almost everything that you need. Get the help that they need. Get the help that you need. So on this special episode and talking to our parents, and especially specifically in our communities and our Black families, I want us to know as we come to the end of this heartfelt special edition conversation, I need us to pause to honor the courage that it takes to face addiction openly, especially within our families and our communities. To every single Black parent that's listening to me right now, you are not alone in this battle. And to every child who may pass by the room when your parent has this episode on, I need you to hear this. You are deeply loved. Your life has purpose, and your healing is possible today. We stand firmly on the promises of God, even of a storm. Psalms 46:1 reminds us God is our refuge and our strength. He's a very present help in trouble. Let those words, parents, teens, let it be your anchor when those waves feel overwhelming. And parents, lean on Proverbs 22:6. That's been my scripture since I started this podcast. Train up a child in the way he or she should go. And when he or she is old, they will not depart from it. They may bend and their faith may dwindle, but just keep believing and keep teaching Proverbs 22:6, and they won't break. So take heart, mom and dad. You're not just enduring, you're overcoming. Together with prayer, with community support, with loving family members, and if you have a love that refuses to quit, restoration is within reach for your child. May this episode be the beginning of deeper understanding, renewed strength, and divine peace in your household. Son, daughter, you are seen. You are supported. And above all, I cover you with your parents in grace. Till the next episode, this is another episode of Monica Mentors. I thank you. I want you to share this. I want you to be in prayer over this. But more importantly, I want you to know you can be healed and you can be whole. Until next time, guys.